I said, brother, sister, let's begin. Life's about faith, flame from within. Stand up, people, time to believe. Lots of you, lots of me. Shake that booty to your thing. Hands together, let's stand, sing. Sing this light of mine. Whoa.
That light, that light, that light. Talk about an abrupt shift in energy. This light feels so very important this week. I know that our topic all of this month is about prosperity, and I'm also deeply aware that all of us would be remiss if we weren't, as a spiritual community, to address the shooting in Las Vegas. So I will refrain from my own personal thoughts on Joe Blow citizens having access to assault weapons, and I'll refrain from sharing my personal thoughts on organizations that fund politicians' election campaigns. But I will not keep to myself what I feel is ours to do. You know, we bill ourselves as a positive path for spiritual living. And I feel like behind every one of these events, whether it's a one-on-one shooting or a mass shooting, that at the root of every one of these events is separation and fear. The quote that keeps running through my mind this week is Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Darkness cannot dispel darkness, only light can. So what I ask of you is that you come to your heart space and that you ask, what is mine to do? How do I shine the light? How do I perhaps enlighten our politicians on what my views are about weapons in general and assault weapons? How do I shine the light in my day-to-day interactions with others? Am I carrying an energy of fear and darkness? Am I carrying an energy of truth, of hope, seeing it right? Am I carrying the energy of spirit light? So I ask us each to add that in our notes this week for spiritual reflection. And I would love to give a whole message about it, and I feel very obligated to carry out our plan for this month about prosperity. So there's no smooth transition there. Clunk, clunk. Now let's talk about prosperity. So this morning and over the next 3 weeks, we're going to cover four of the key principles of prosperity. This is an extremely broad topic for those of us who have studied it. And I know that folks have a very wide range of understanding of what prosperity is and what's entailed with living prosperously, really. There's different views and different lenses and different ways of approaching that. So I truthfully did not know anything about prosperity until I walked into Unity. Is that true for anybody else? Or did y'all know about it? I'm maybe the only one. But I'm okay with that. Oh, Lisa, thank you. Appreciate the support. So I walked into Unity 30-some years ago, and I first learned about the ideas of prosperity. What I didn't know for many, many years is that I vastly misunderstood prosperity. For instance, I didn't know anything about the principles of prosperity. I knew nothing about the divine laws that govern prosperity. So, not knowing what I didn't know, it took me years to stumble and claw my way to understanding prosperity and actually living prosperity principles. So I started up the north face of Prosperity Mountain by affirming. I am talking about fervently affirming. Reverend Lola and I had had some talks about affirmations and denials in relationship to prosperity. So I did my affirmations and denials literally hundreds of times on my morning run for a very long time. I was noticing no improvement. I was still creating debt. I was creating debt by living beyond my income. And then with my second Unity minister, Reverend Anne Marie, I uncovered a major stumbling block to prosperity. We did some exploring and some talking about core beliefs. Because here I am doing the work of affirming, I'm giving it the power of the spoken word, and yet my life is still driven by my particular core belief, which at the time was, there's not enough. There's not enough for me. There won't be enough. I remember one of my prosperity teachers at Unity Village saying, it doesn't matter how many zeros are behind the first number on your paycheck. Prosperity isn't about the number of how long that number is. So having moved from living in debt and lack over the past decades, I am passionate about prosperity. I'm passionate about personally living the principles. I'm really passionate about discussions about prosperity, what that means for folks, and passionate about offering this as a spiritual community activity. And I don't believe that it has to take years. And I'm not saying that the ministers before me maybe didn't teach or talk about some of the things that I'm going to be talking about this month. I don't know if they did or didn't. I just know I didn't hear it. You know how that is? You hear something in a certain way and it's, who knew? And, you know, the minister can say, oh, I've been talking about that for 10 years. But we hear it when we're ready, do we not? So everyone that's hearing this message is at varying levels of understanding what it means to live prosperously. Does any one of us feel like we know everything there is to know about prosperity? Because we have folks that have been in here for 90 years. Maybe just 70, Sally. I don't. 60, 50, 40? Yeah. Oh! Good point, good point. So there's always more to learn. And who among us feels like we currently have enough? Yay. That we currently have enough money. That we currently have enough energy. That we currently have enough peace. That we currently have enough health and wholeness. That we currently have enough well-being. So I'm sharing this material this month to invite all of us into a greater depth of prosperous living. And I invite us to remember that as our individual consciousness grows around these ideas, so does the consciousness of our community. And the fact that we are being offered an opportunity this month to be sustaining givers is significant, because as we learn about these principles, we'll learn about the importance of giving. So this discussion group that we're having each week after the service will be over in the Strong classroom on the west end of the building. And I invite each of you to stick around today. I'm hoping that we overflow the Strong room and we come back in here or maybe into the bookstore to really explore on an individual basis and with our fellow spiritual travelers to really explore what prosperity means and what prosperous living means. So let's go to square one. What does prosperity mean to you? We'll talk about this in depth in the group, but I would like to hear from a couple of people. What does prosperity mean to you? Yes, Barb. That we're always taken care of. Does that ring a ding ding with anybody? One more. What does prosperity mean to you? Who said that? Fulfillment. Thank you. Fulfillment. Ooh, we're going to talk about that. The law, divine law of supply. There's this fabulous, it's sort of a textbook put together by master metaphysician, Unity minister Paul Hesselbeck. And I want to quote from 3 key Unity folks. This Hesselbeck wrote, the book is called Heart-Centered Metaphysics. We are currently out of stock in the bookstore. If you know you want this booklet, please let Ruth know and we'll get it on order for you. True prosperity is first and foremost about the mind. Kate, do you remember when we were at the Maria Nemeth workshops, December 2001? Kate and Cindy Hathaway and I went. It was 4 days, I think, of workshop, and we all shared a hotel room and spent all night awake talking about what we had learned that day. And I remember laying in bed and talking about like not having enough and being in debt and so forth. And Cindy Hathaway said, yeah, I used to do that, but not anymore. And I remember shooting straight up in bed and looking over at her and saying, what changed? I'll never forget it. She said, I changed my mind about money. True prosperity is first and foremost about the mind. It is about obtaining a consciousness through and from which substance will flow. Obtaining a consciousness through and from which substance will flow, ultimately unfolding more and more of Christ consciousness, of divine mind. Prosperity originates in and from the truth of what we are, the source of all good, our connection with source. If we wanted to write down one thing from today, prosperity is about obtaining a consciousness through and from which prosperity flows. You know, there can be a flow of water happening, and if I don't step over and move the faucet to on, I have no idea that all of the water I want, all of the water I can use is already available to me. All of whatever is enough for us is available, and we tap into it. We turn on that on switch when we open our consciousness to it. So Charles Fillmore, Unity's co-founder, wrote in the Revealing Word, prosperity is based on the conscious possession. There's a lot of waking up to do today. Based on the conscious possession of the idea of God's abundance in back of all things. No limit to supply. And then finally, the great Reverend Eric Butterworth wrote, considered in the broadest sense, prosperity is spiritual well-being. Yes? Considered in the very broadest sense, spiritual well-being. And this involves the whole experience of healing life, or what we would call wholeness, satisfying love, abiding peace, harmony, and a sufficiency of every good thing. So those are some good starting points for our discussion group today. If we learn one thing, and I think this is maybe one of the core things that somehow took me years to figure out, because in all those years of affirmations and denials, all those years of what I thought was practicing prosperity, in my mind it was out there. In my mind I was waiting for something to come to me. And it wasn't until through my ministers and teachers in prosperity, it wasn't until I learned that, oh, the on switch is in here. The on switch is in my consciousness. Nothing has to change out here, right? Everything, like Cindy Hathaway said, I changed my mind. So prosperity is also known as the kingdom. Our way shower, Jesus, talked about the kingdom ad infinitum. And the kingdom is our divine inheritance from source. The kingdom is divine idea that comes alive in us when we practice the principles of prosperity, when we apply the divine laws that govern prosperity. So there's another element this morning that we must include in our formative discussion here, and that is called substance. I can never talk about substance without doing that. So what do we know about substance? A couple of people. Substance, what is that? Jan, Susan? What'd you say? I didn't hear the words. Hard stuff? Substance is tangible. Hard stuff. One other person. Nina Bell.
What's that first verse in John? The word.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God.
And the word was from God. So it's like the expression of God.
Ah, very cool. It's the expression of God. Fillmore, as you might guess, had plenty to say about substance. He wrote that when Jesus talked about the kingdom at hand, that he was referring to this infinite ocean of substance in which we swim. And we must, on a daily basis, I must, on a daily basis, remind myself that the kingdom is within. And all of humankind, including every single person that's in this room, every single person that will hear or watch this cast, has that kingdom within. We all come into this earthly realm with it. So here's what substance is, according to Charles Fillmore. It is the invisible energy. It is intangible. It is not visible, not touchable. It's the invisible energy field that lies back of everything we see in our realm. Everything. Everything. Every person that we're sitting next to came out of substance. It's the ethers. We can't see it, taste it, touch it, feel it. But do I know it's there? Do I know I'm swimming in it? Do I know I can drink all the substance I want and there's still going to be plenty left? That's the cool thing about substance. What is sufficient for me, pardon me, may or may not be sufficient for someone else here. Yes? Substance is the stuff out of which all material stuff comes. And hear this that Fillmore wrote. It is the inexhaustible, infinite, never run out. There is plenty. There is enough. There is more than enough. I take issue with one of the words in that song we sang because they're like, so much is going to pour out that we don't have room for it. And I'm like, excuse me? Right? You know the story about the woman, I think it's in the book of Kings, the story about the woman that was out of oil, and it was a precious commodity, and she was told, go get a whole lot more containers. Don't be holding up this little thing, because we get as much as can flow through us, right? She borrowed every container she could find from the neighbors. The oil started flowing and overflowing. It is the inexhaustible mind substance is available at all times. At all times. At all times. Substance is available at all times. Substance is available in all places to those who have learned to lay hold of it in consciousness. There's the faucet again. Yes? We're swimming in it. And yet, I used to say, I used to think, I used to believe there's just not enough. Other people get their fair share. Or more than, right? There's that. So here's the deal. When we get it, when we embody the truth of substance, we begin to live prosperously. To this I can attest. When we embody the truth of prosperity and of substance, that is the go button, that is the starting point of living prosperously. And Fillmore goes on to tell us that we've been provided with the mind to lay hold of substance. We have that mind. We have that within us. Here's what Fillmore says. It's easy to put the law into action through thought, word, and deed. So it's always available. And you said something about fulfillment. It responds to our faith in it, and it responds to our demands upon it. I could have $1 billion in the bank. And if I never made a withdrawal on my $1 billion, I could be walking around saying, I can't pay my bills. I can't buy groceries. I don't have enough. Right? So here we have this storehouse that is so much more immense, so much deeper than our human minds can conceive. And it's just waiting for us to turn on the faucet, whether we're talking about well-being, whether we're talking about deep inner peace, whether we're talking about wholeness, having enough energy, having enough time, having enough money. It's not about stuff. So substance is always ready to give because that is its nature. It's the divine law of supply. It's the divine law of, it's called infinite expansion. And we can link bringing substance into our world, into our lives, through mind, idea, expression. So first we connect with divine mind, yes? Fillmore says we've been provided with the mind to lay hold of substance. So we connect to it. Meditation, prayer, discussion with people who know, with people whom we see living prosperously. We connect with that mind and we open ourselves to grasping and embodying the idea of prosperity, of substance, of living prosperously. And then from divine mind, from God mind, comes something called divine ideas. Anybody ever had a divine idea? Something that just sort of came out of like the lyrics to that song. Like, it's just there. It's just there. Did you like walk around asking for different lyrics to this little light? You know, if I could just have different lyrics to this little light, my life would change immensely. But open, and the consciousness where it's flowing. So these divine ideas are grist for the mill of manifestation. And finally, expression, yes, the power of our spoken word. Because that belief and that spoken word and that fear of there's not enough can carry as much weight and power as I'm swimming in an ocean of substance. All I have to do is figure out what to do with it. Mind, idea, expression. And Fillmore says this work can be done without struggle. How many of us believe that? I didn't used to. This work can be done without struggle because the nature of divine supply is fulfillment. And we can cut that struggle short by doing that mental, emotional belief scan. What could possibly stand in the way of me having enough? My mother handing me money as, I don't know, maybe a teenager, a $5 bill, and saying, this is all I have between me and starvation. Okay, I'll take the 5, but it's with a truckload of guilt, right? And I'm depriving someone else of what they have. So they're really insidious little messages. She meant no harm by that, but it shaped my beliefs. So we do this body scan, mind, body, spirit scan. And we ask ourselves, like, into what arena am I directing my energy? Not enough. Things are tight. It's running out. Or am I directing my mind, idea, expression to the idea of infinite, of enough, of sufficient? And I also invite us to notice, where do we leak substance? Where do we leak energy in our lives? Doing things that we don't love doing. Doing things that we feel obligated to do. Doing things because we think someone will like us more if we do this. Where do we leak money? That was a big part of that course with Maria Nemeth. We had to do a 30-day exercise recording every single penny that we used and how we used it. Where do we leak love? Chasing it where it isn't. Thinking that whatever love we get is what we deserve. So think about that question. Where do I leak energy? Just because it's infinite, that doesn't give us license to waste it. I don't have lights on in my house if I'm not in the room. I don't run water unless I'm putting it in a container to use for something, to drink. Well, I can't say to cook. To drink. So think about leaking and wasting and stewardship. There's so much great material on this topic. And today we're going to stick to, in our discussion group, we're going to stick to what does it mean for me? What are some of the divine laws and principles, and what is substance? So I want to close from this quote from Wings of Song. Do you notice how that book looks dangerously like that one? This quote from Fillmore. He says, "We can no more be separated from our supply of substance than life can be separated from source." I'm going to repeat that and ask us to breathe into that. I can no more be separated from supply of substance than life can be separated from source. I cannot be separated from substance. As God permeates the universe and life permeates every cell of the body, so does substance flow freely through us, free from limit, free from qualification. We don't have to qualify for it. And this last thought, as you lay hold of substance with your mind, make it permanent and enduring. Realize your oneness with it. Like step into that. Realize your oneness with it. We are unified with the one living substance, which is God. From this substance, from source, from life, we are created. And in this substance, we live, breathe, move, and have our being. Let's take that into a meditation time for ourselves this morning and reflect, going within, maybe beginning with a complete breath, knowing that as we breathe, it is the activity of spirit in us. Notice that Spirit breathes us without our direction. It would take up a lot of time in a day if we had to constantly say, "Give me a breath." Spirit is breathing us. And so let's bless that movement. Let's bless that activity of Spirit in us. Let's bless the divine mind with which we are given. Let's bless our willingness and our openness to see with spiritual eyes this infinite ocean of substance. Let's begin to embody with every thought, with our words, with our actions. Let's begin to embody the idea: I am substance in motion. Substance flows from and through me with great lavishness. I'm willing to change my mind about my core beliefs. It's like substance is calling our name, saying, "Here I am. Here I am." Reach out. Reach in. Here I am. Be still and know that I am God. And breathing into our good, breathing out our good, we say, and so it is.
Taste how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but